Possibility of a random meme rally killed the classic long-short strategy. With us now is noted short seller Carson Block of Muddy Waters Research. Carson, thank you for joining us. I'm going to use some data to kind of, at least in the short term, answer that question, which is such that Morgan Stanley Prime Brokerage shows that the popular short positions generated their best alpha since 2010 last month. But there is a difference, of course, between hedging and what you do in terms of activist short selling. I can only think of a handful of investors at this point in time willing to disclose their short positions for fear of a short squeeze, especially after what we've seen this year, as Christina laid out for us. Does that concern you?
Well, it's actually the reluctance to disclose short positions is nothing new. Generally, long short managers have been very reluctant to disclose those positions, since short selling was first institutionalized. We're a different breed because we're activist short sellers. And so the point for us is to disclose the short positions as well as the rationale for our shorts. And as activist short sellers, we're generally not shorting things for fundamental reasons. Like GameStop was a fundamentals-based short. We're shorting stocks where generally management has misled investors, or there's some other bad faith element to the narrative that investors have bought into.
Critics of short sellers say that it's wrong, that it's un-American to bet against a company, to bet for a company to be demised, essentially. And there's been this kind of personalization of companies that has taken place this year, where people have mobilized on social media and kind of corralled in support of companies in a way that seems more personal than it has, fundamental or pocketbook based. What do you make of the drumbeat now for more regulation on short selling in particular? Is that a concern of yours, or do you think that any kind of regulation with regard to disclosure would be more akin to what you're doing right now?
Well, okay, so there are a few things to unpack there. Short selling is un-American is kind of a trigger for me, because I think the former chairman of NYSE, former president of NYSE, a few years ago when he was testifying before Congress, his quote was, "Short selling feels kind of icky and un-American." And, this is at the exact same time that NYSE and NASDAQ are like begging these Chinese frauds to come over and pay listing fees and steal more Americans' money. So I always thought that there was a very rich level of hypocrisy in that statement. But all right, let's put that to the side. So especially when you look at what we do as activist short sellers, I mean, we're out there trying to hold people accountable who are, in some cases, abjectly lying to investors, or in other cases, violating the spirit of the law, but staying just within the letter of the law. And I think that bears some additional mention for a moment here, because there is, throughout Western societies right now, a loss of faith in our institutions. And I think a large part of that is because people understand that it's so easy to violate the spirit of the law while not violating the letter, and thus being held accountable for it. And we're really now, as activist short sellers, or even other short sellers, we're one of the very, very few groups that are out there trying to hold wrongdoers accountable. And, unfortunately, enforcement has been it's been just weak for better part of a decade. So, to me, if you're going to say that what we do is un-American, then de facto you are saying scamming and gilding the lily, that's American. And I don't want to believe that, but that's basically what you would be saying if you say that.